So if I missed any announcements, I'm sure somebody will let me know. So Shabbat Shalom. I need to tell you that I find it nearly impossible to read Torah without looking out the window. And I actually mean that quite literally and metaphorically. Very often when I study, I have to sit with a verse and look out into the near nothingness in order to organize my thoughts as to its meaning and its greater lesson. For some reason, I don't fully understand the words staring at the page. That doesn't help me understand them better. But lifting my eyes from the page and staring into the sky, for some reason that does. Maybe it's the same for you. Of course, when we look out into the world in such a way, our focus is very often not outward, but inward. Staring into space, at least for me, allows me to focus on what's going on inside my soul. It's in this process of what I am going to call external introspection, a term that I have totally made up, but you are welcome to use if you like it. It's in this process that in some ways studying Torah is like reading your horoscope. As we reflect on the ancient words, they seem to always be relevant and prescient to our present circumstance. And so it is with this week's Torah portion. The lesson from our Parsha Vaera is undoubtedly always useful, but even more so and more important perhaps than any other lesson that I could think of needing to be reminded of at this particular moment of human discord, of human distrust, and of violent words and actions, perhaps more important than ever before. The lesson is necessary not just in light of what took place at the US Capitol or in the streets of Vancouver amongst the maskers and the anti-maskers, not only between politicians and activists here and everywhere, but also in our locked down homes, where tensions between parents and children, siblings and each other, partners cooped up together for longer than many ever imagined, can at times run as hot as anything that we see on the news. And so the Torah portion begins, like most, where last week's ended, but it starts from a different place. And if that sentence seems incoherent, it is, in fact, I think, the very essence of the lesson. We ended Parshat Shemot last week with Moses speaking harshly and in an accusing tone to God when he says, and then Moses returned to the Lord and said, "O Lord, why did you bring harm unto this people? Why did you send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has dealt worse with this people, and still you have not delivered your people." And then God responds as one might expect, as we might respond. God responds harshly and rebukes Moses. And God says to Moses, "You shall soon see what I will do to Pharaoh. He shall let them go because of a greater might. Indeed, because of a greater might, he shall drive them from this land, from his land." Now, just think for a moment about how you respond when someone attacks you with accusations in a harsh tone, when someone questions your competence. I know how I respond, and it's usually in the same tone that I am spoken to. And God is no different. The fact that we are created B'Tselem Elohim in the image of God, it actually works both ways, for better and for worse. And so in this week's Parsha, God continues to rebuke Moses, but he does so only for 3 or 4 words. Vayadaber Elohim el Moshe. God spoke to Moses. A commentary on this verse teaches that when God begins to speak, the word Vayidaber, and he spoke, is used. Vayidaber in Torah is a tough word. It's the equivalent of saying to someone in the heat of an argument, "Shut up, I'm talking now." But then God changes his tone to something much softer and continues, Vayomer Elav, Ani Adonai. And he said to him. The rabbis explain that God uses this change in tone to teach Moses, and of course by extension all of us, a lesson about the Jewish virtue of din, or justice, and rachamim, compassion or mercy. Our rabbis teach that the phrase Vayomer Elav, and God says to him, is the tone that is used like a man who is angry at his beloved friend. And when he sees him astonished and frightened by his anger, he immediately coaxes him with gentle words, because all of his anger was simply momentary. But when he had a moment to consider who was standing before him, the relationship that they had built, the trust, the friendship, and the love that they shared with each other, even if it was escaping them both in that moment of anger, one changes to a softer tone when one realizes who they're speaking to and with. In our Parsha, in the space of just 4 words, God stopped and immediately switched his tone, or her tone, and said to him, I am the Eternal, Vayomer Elav, Ani Adonai, which is more gentle language. And there God teaches another Jewish virtue that must always go hand in hand with din, or justice, the virtue of rachamim, of mercy or compassion. Din and rachamim, justice and mercy. We encounter these 2 virtues frequently in Judaism, and in some ways they are like elements in nature that are most dangerous when one is without the other. We might recall the terms from our Yom Kippur prayers. We begin that day with prayer and pleading before God as we acknowledge our sins and transgressions. And tradition teaches that God begins the day seated on Kisei Din, on the throne of judgment. But as the day moves on, as the sun sets in the sky, as the Nila service comes and the gates of judgment begin to close, God moves from Kisei Din to Kisei Rachamim, to the throne of mercy, to the gates of judgment, become the gates of compassion. Not simply out of exhaustion and having been worn down by our pleading and apologizing, not because God is hungry, God's not fasting, but because God remembers that we are in a covenantal relationship, a brit, that we are friends, that we are beloved, that we have a history. And if we are to have a future, we need to speak kindly with each other, to teach each other gently, even when, and especially when, we are in disagreement or we are frustrated. When we see how our anger affects those whom we love, we might reconsider how we've expressed our anger. Words, of course, matter, but so does tone. How we say what we say can harden or soften a heart. Which is, of course, the deeper lesson of this morning's Torah portion, which details plague by plague, as Jeff read to us, how Pharaoh hardened his heart towards the Jewish people as Moses beseeched him on God's behalf to let my people go. Pharaoh's heart was not hardened in an instant. It happened over time. It happens because of unaddressed fear and insecurity. It happens because the loving and trustful relationship that existed generations before between the previous Pharaoh and Joseph and his descendants is not nurtured and renewed in subsequent generations. It happened for a myriad of unforeseen and foreseen reasons. But it is true to say that where once there was trust, admiration, and mutual respect, distrust, fear, and hostility were allowed to take root and grow. It's hard to say if there was anything that the Israelites could have done to stop Pharaoh's growing suspicion of them, and thus his quest for absolute power and domination over them. But what our Torah teaches in these first few words is that when you begin to speak unkindly towards each other, when you begin to withhold rachamim, when you begin to withhold mercy and compassion, it is a road to ruin that can easily end in relationships destroyed and ultimately lives as well. The great Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai expresses it beautifully in his powerful poem, The Place Where We Are Right. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. But doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole or plow. And a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. How might things change if we began our personal and political conversations, not from our certainties, not from the place where we are right, but from our doubts and loves, not from din, but from rachamim? Many of us who differ politically love the same things: our children and grandchildren, our country, the natural world. Many of us who differ politically harbor the same doubts. That's what's being done, that what's being done or not done to care for the things we love is the best or the right thing to do. Yes, we differ on what ought to be done, but What if instead of starting by arguing over solutions, arguing over the place where we are right, we began by sharing our loves and our doubts? What if we started not with Vayidaber, hey, I'm talking now, and instead began with Vayomer Elav, hear me out, because I care about us much more than I care about this particular issue that we are disagreeing about. Don't sit in judgment. Sit with compassion. God moves from Din to Rachamim in the space of 3 words, all within 1 verse. It can be much harder for us. We are like God, but we are not God. And that too we should remember from the place where we are right. But we can often soften our tone and start from a place not where we are right, but from a place where we are kind. We have, of course, heard all of this before. Our Torah this morning and the events of this past week, not to mention months and years of discord at home and abroad, plead with us to not only hear them, but finally learn these words. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Amen.
Amen. Yasher koach, Rabbi Dan. What a beautiful text. And I love that Amichai poem so much. That was really beautiful the way you wove that together. Thank you.
Thank you. And a thank you to Rabbi Brown. I was struggling with that particular text, and she helped me with my translation because it wasn't quite adding up what I was doing. So thank you, Rabbi Brown.
My pleasure.